Hello and welcome to OT the Podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, and how to spend it. My name's Felix Schultz.
You nearly said Andy Green, didn't you?
No.
For a moment.
No, I almost said, my name is Felix Schultz. How are you, Andy Green? But then I didn't want to steal your moment of thunder.
Yeah, just the first 10 seconds are the most important.
Whoa.
Dodged a bullet there, Felix. Today we are talking about a few things.
Sure.
Being a bit of a retrospective on the year 2022. We're going to look back at some predictions that people, not us, definitely not us, made, and kind of see how they squared up for the year. I always find it interesting to kind of see, once the dust settles on the year.
We're kind of getting in early on the old New Year's post, aren't we?
Well, this will be December. This will be a December episode.
And the other thing, on the other side of that, I think we're sort of doing a bit of prognostication of our own. Well, basically, I pitched this idea. I want to talk about things that I think we are going to see more of in the next 12 months that I've euphemistically, using my editorial clickbait headline, called sleeper hits.
Sleeper hits. I think that's an interesting thing to talk about. Obviously, this year's been quite interesting on watches. The market was crazy last year. It's just very, 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 very fascinating time to be, especially in the grey market or the secondary market, having, decreased quite a lot.
As long as you didn't spend $250K on a skeleton AP.
Or a John Mayer, yeah. So I think that secondary market was dictating what watch brands do pretty heavily. It's like you can't ignore it. Mm-hmm. And I'm very interested to see this big tapering off and, recession, cough, and, the economic sitch and how watch brands handle that. But we'll save that. We'll save that chat.
Sure. Yeah. We were also sort of saying, hey, should we talk about the economy today? I'm like, it's inevitable, isn't it, really?
Well, it's just such a big influence on the watch market. But anyway, Felix, what have you been up to? You've been, film stuff?
I've been trying to track it down. We've sort of been sharing messages around this. This is kind of wild that this can happen in 2022. The movie Goncharov. Well, no, we've been talking about it. So it's the big thing is, so this is a Martin Scorsese film, and it's kind of been forgotten about.
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because the story is released in 1973, so quite early in his career, like same year as Mean Streets, except it didn't have a release. Like it wasn't released
like mainstream
run, and like it was shown at a cinema, and it didn't. So they're calling it the Lost Scorsese film, and it's quite bonkers. It's allegedly about this Russian discotheque owner.
Okay.
Called the Soviet Union. He's gone to Naples. This guy named Goncharov. Who's in the film? Scorsese and De Niro, Sybil Shepherd. There's a whole lot of stuff going on.
Scorsese's in it.
Is he?
No, did you say he was in it?
No.
Director.
De Niro and it's Scorsese directed it.
So young De Niro, what's that around the same time as Taxi?
Well, so he was in Mean Streets, I think. Okay. So, young Pacino as well.
Nothing like a young Pacino.
Yeah, Gene Hackman, Harvey Keitel. It's incredible. It's incredible that this film isn't better known.
Yeah. So what, you're trying to track down a copy?
Yeah, I haven't seen it on any streaming services, and I've just sort of been seeing these articles about it. So I think it's set in Naples, so like the Fits.
Okay.
We're also talking about not Goncharov, but I rewatched Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah, wow.
Incredible that film didn't get any Oscars. But yeah, so there's this guy in it called Ice Pick Joe. It seems like a wild ride.
Ice Pick Joe.
Yeah.
There's no good reason for having that nickname, is there?
And it's billed as the greatest mafia movie ever made.
Okay.
So yeah, that's pretty wild. If anyone's seen it, let me know.
It sounds like a good use of your time.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. I'm kind of getting a little bit more into film. Film nerd TikTok, and it's alternately fascinating and frustrating. So anyone join our Discord. Let us know if you've seen Goncharov, what you think about it. Can't wait to get my hands on it. Andy, what have you been up to?
Fantastic. Well, I've been getting my hands on watches this week. Piaget Polo Green Skeleton.
New release for them.
Yeah, newish release, maybe a month or two ago. October, I think it was dropped with a couple of other models, all thematically green. This is the obviously the name Like I said, it's a green skeleton. 42 millimeters in diameter, 6.5 millimeter stainless steel case with 30 meters of water resistance. But what I really like about this watch is not the water resistance, because I think that's probably useless. I like the movement.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of, I feel like it's sort of like an anodized green, but front on, it's very, very dark.
Yeah.
And then as you kind of play with your wrist in the light, it becomes quite bright and light and gives it, well, life.
Pop.
It gives the dial life.
To use
Beyond popping, it gives the dial life. Like it lights up different parts of the movement, other parts stay dark. It's really quite interesting. The case is so slim. You've obviously gone hands-on.
Yeah, and I was about to say, of all the things about this watch, the size, the style, and the slimness.
Yeah. So as you get with these slimmer watches, it is slightly bigger, but at 42 millimeters, there's basically no lugs. So it's sporty. Like, it's a sporty size watch, if not on the thinner side of a sporty size watch. But I just think because it is thin, you expect it to be a small diameter as well, because, I think my brain scales it in that way.
Sure.
Still really wearable. Also give extra points to the quick change bracelet. So built-in spring bars, and you just easily pop them out. Pop the green alligator strap that I also got sent on.
Yep.
Which is really cool. I love seeing that.
I've always been low-key obsessed with the middle links on the bracelet.
Oh, the polish.
Well, the brushed.
Oh, the brush and then the polish on the sides. So fingerprint magnet, as any polished center link or side link will get.
I have zoomed in on the shots you've sent, and yes, many fingerprints.
Many fingerprints, but I'm not one to worry about fingerprints or photoshopping them out or even caring enough to clean the watch before.
It looks good, like
Yeah,
you're gonna wear it.
I set realistic watch expectations with my watch photography.
How much? How many dollary dues are we looking at for this bad girl?
It's about 46 grand Australian.
What do you think?
Boutique exclusive. Oh, look, I am an armor about that price point for a steel watch, because that's that's really up there. Obviously Patek, I think, set the benchmark for expensive steel watch. Obviously AP would be a bit more.
Yeah.
Plenty of brands that do it less, but you don't really find a skeleton dial below 40 grand Aussie. Like, I can't think of one, maybe the GP Laureato, but
nothing that nice.
Nothing that nice. And I'd argue this has probably got a better movement. Well, it definitely has better movement.
Yep.
Has a legit movement. It's very cool. It's very nice. There's some cred there. So it's a lot of money, but I don't think you get a bad deal for that 46. It's boutique exclusive.
It's a specific choice. Like, you got to want some of that stuff. Otherwise, it's competitive at that.
And I think the steel, you can wear it a lot. Like you mentioned the fingerprints. I think you could beat this up a bit. Like, I think you could, obviously look after it, but I think you could really, this would be a cool watch to sort of daily put marks on, put scuffs on, and go out there and enjoy and put character on. I mean, I've got, Bernard, who a lot of people know from Monards. He rocks the regular steel skeleton. He sold quite a few of them.
Yep.
But worn in, it's a really cool look, because everything but the movement, which is fully on display, gets scuffed up and scratched, and then that movement just stays pristine. So I find it quite cool.
That is cool. Hey, before we move on to predictions that didn't pan out, or maybe did, I have one last question for you about this watch.
Ask me.
Do you reckon it'll look good on an Artem strap?
Oh, mate, it would look really, really cool on a...
Do you think it would? On
a NATO, I reckon. I mean, although the Artem straps that you can find on artemstraps.com have quick release built-in spring bars as well.
No, I reckon if you colour match the green, like with their sailcloth, I reckon that'd be a surprising, maybe contrast stitch, surprisingly good combination.
Yeah, I mean, I'm me. I think the silky, just straight up NATO would look pretty good. I think it would keep it nice and close to the wrist, and it would be quite a sporty vibe. But, Felix, that's the beauty. That's the beauty.
And also, with a NATO, you wouldn't have to worry about weirdly seeing patches of your own wrist through the skeleton.
That's true. Or fingerprints on the bracelet. But, Felix, that is the beauty of Artem straps, our friends. They've got something for everyone.
Sure.
Colour, materials, sailcloth, NATO, hardware, you name it. Find it all on
They don't
artemstraps.com.
have is watches.
Well, for now. So yeah, artemstraps.com, adam.straps on Instagram. That's where you'll see it. Maybe someone will send us a Piaget Polo on an Artem strap, but I'd like to see that.
Incredible. Hey, predictions. They're dangerous.
Yeah, so December, that time of year.
Yeah.
Everyone loves to speculate. It's clickbait content. You know, Rolex predictions, Patek predictions. We're doing the inverse. We're flipping it on you all. We're going to call out your bad predictions. So, you know, think about stuff like the Nautilus from Patek being discontinued. I was in the camp of, well, it's not going to go away. It'll be something new. You very recently, I think, you were of the belief it would come out in titanium.
Yeah, I mean, no, I talked about the. We talked with again, Chris. Oh, we've got to stop name checking. Name checking.
Just let's make him a permanent host.
Yeah, let's fire one.
Let us know.
Replace Chris. Chris, you choose who you replace.
Yeah.
No, he was talking like the 60th anniversary or something is coming up in a few years, and maybe that's when they'll reintroduce a new one or a new medal or something.
But no, came out in white gold, 6711. You know, I think there was a general vibe based on a few things that Terry Stern said that Patek would shift their focus off those hot steel sport, you know, watches, which I guess is kind of true. They kind of less steel, but still hot sports watches.
Gold.
Yeah, and then moving over to Rolex, I mean, GMT Master 2 Sprite, that was sort of everyone was predicting.
I mean, like, what we really want is a Destro green and black.
I think they're still calling it the Sprite. It's just the wrong way around. I saw really convincing photos of a Rolex Daytona with like a grey and blue kind of config on the bezel and the dial. And it was 41 millimeters, had the fake hang tags, fake box, like full Photoshop job.
Yeah.
And they were saying 41 mil with the spruced up movement. And it was pretty convinced. Like I was borderline convinced, oh, this could be a leaked photo. Then I remembered there's no way they've put it all into it.
Doing that movement in anytime soon.
No, there's just no way that photo would have ever gotten out. Air King discontinued. Everyone was saying that.
Was the predictions around the titanium Yachtmaster this year, or was that too recent? Like, because there was that prototype that sailor was wearing.
Yeah, I don't know. But what I think we should do better than just running through individual models, because you know, boring. One of our future guests who we need to book on, we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they don't know they're a future guest, but they are.
Just throwing it out there. Read an article, 8 watch industry predictions for 2022. This article was written on the 11th of January this year, 2022, for Robb Report.
By Victoria Gamelski, we should say.
Yes, from Robb Report, but also New York Times.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Elite. So what she did was she got 8 different people from the watch industry, asked them for sort of
big dogs.
Big dogs on big dog opinions on what the year would hold. And I think I'm reading through, I found it quite humorous and interesting to see who was on the money, off the money, and wildly wrong.
All right. Are we going to evaluate these people? And
yeah, so I'll read out who they are, where they're from, and just sort of my take on what their take was, because I'm not going to read out their whole take. That's pointless. You can read the article, link it up. But first we had Paul Altieri from Bob's Watches. Everyone knows Bob's Watches.
Bob himself.
Bob himself. So his take was watches will continue to increase in value and be a top performing asset class.
I mean, my initial reaction to that, Andy, and is, correct me if I'm wrong, that I would expect that the founder and CEO of one of the major secondary market watch sellers would be invested in continuing to tell the story that watches are a great value.
Yes. Yeah. And if you need a watch, there's one place to head. Interesting. That is a good point, Felix. I don't know that he was entirely correct. The market has definitely come down. They were a top-performing asset class. They were very strong towards the end of last year. This year,
but I still think broadly it holds true. Like, I mean, even if it's not as, you know...
Yeah, even if you're not quadrupling your money, you might still double it.
The right watch, you're still going to do well. Like, if you can get any Rolex at retail, it's still going to do well. Like that has
and hang on to it. Yeah, it'll end up being worth more than you paid sooner or later.
Paul gets, let's say, a C grade for Paul.
C grade. Okay, next up, Kelly Yoch from formerly from Tiffany, now Watches of Switzerland US.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly said, "Be prepared for the Indies."
Did you say anything else?
4 words. She did.
Was that it? Oh, okay. All right.
But that was sort of the take.
Sure.
Consumers are going to focus towards independent brands. They're
Yeah.
going to really start to take off. I think Kelly was on the money. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, the natural flow-on effect, as as everyone's really talked about, of this resurgence in interest in watches, and the appetite of a whole new sector entering the market is they've discovered Rolex, they've
Yep.
discovered Patek, now they're discovering, I don't know, Kari Vuitton, and
Yeah, and I don't know if watches would still sell that sort of stuff as well, but probably. Another former guest of OT the podcast.
Kelly, what grade are we giving her?
B plus.
A minus, B plus.
Same. I don't know. We don't use those metrics over here, but B plus. We'll call it a B plus. All right. Next up, we have William Massena from Massena Lab, from William Massena from OT the podcast. William said that this is interesting, Felix. The brands are going to separate from the big four, being LVMH, Kering, Richemont, and Swatch. On top of that, there'll be a pressure to reduce costs across the board. And, we're going to see deconsolidation amongst these big groups over the next few years / decade.
Hard to call this 1 year in. I'm pretty sure that I'm no expert in corporate strategy. This is not the sort of thing you do quickly.
Well, that's exactly what he said. He said it's going to take years or a decade.
Yeah, but he's not wrong.
We've seen a bit of it so far.
Kering has got rid of their watch brands, and they're now self-owned. UN and GP.
Yeah, first management buyout in the history of watches, I think.
Yeah, there's other, Baume & Mercier, I think, is in a weird position. At Richemont, I don't think they're managed necessarily locally by Richemont, distributed. There's some really interesting corporate things happening, and I mean, A plus to William.
Yeah, I think he's getting an A plus. I think this is going to be a very cool space to watch. All right, next one was Keith Davis from Christie's.
Sure.
Hi, Keith. He said, in 3 simple words, the auction market is going to broaden. So by that, he meant not just the blue chip stuff you always see at auction, stuff like Renault, Ming, those sorts of brands hitting the auction marketplace and doing really well.
This is interesting because what I think he's saying there, being from Christie's, is that the blue chip auctions, because they're all like, if I can go onto eBay, I can go to estate sales, I can go to Grays, I can find a massive range of watches. Like Philips and Christie's, they have like their local market, like especially Hong Kong. I look through the sales there. There is a incredible range of stuff that you never hear about.
Yeah,
what makes it to Geneva, like.
Maybe this is a bit of marketing from Christie's in terms of, hey, we'll take other stuff. We don't just want to take 6-figure pieces.
Yeah,
we're happy to make a bit of money on a 20K watch.
Sure,
you'll get a great result.
We'll fill out the lots. We'll diversify our risk. I mean, you're seeing more and more Grand Seiko. I think that's a story that I've seen a bit. Like you're seeing, they're starting to take those guys seriously in the sort of the vintage space.
And on top of that, I mean, Eric Koo's marketplace, which is
Loop This,
which has done fantastically well with all those sorts of pieces we're talking about. I mean, the non-traditional auction.
Hey, can I sneak in a hot take?
Oh, sure.
You know how we talked about the GPHGs essentially being a marketing platform for big brands?
Yep.
Philips is increasingly becoming a marketing platform for big brands.
Yeah.
I think it's Zenith. They've got their like one piece uniques and
that's 6 3-way collaboration they did.
Yeah, all that stuff. Like it's they're capitalizing on their sort of third party legitimacy and selling some watches at the same time. Anyway, that was my hot take. Moving on.
Sean Song, who's a vintage dealer from Asia.
Sure.
He had an interesting take as well, Felix. Oh, did we give Keith a grade?
B.
Yeah. Okay, Sean, vintage dealer. Basically saying we're going to see a return to classic dress watches.
Again, we can read the article, but did he clarify this in any way?
New, modern, vintage.
All of it.
People are going to really shift their focus. They're tired of Nautiluses, tired of AP. They're going to start looking at dress watches.
Selling the subs and buying Calatravas.
exactly. And I think he's going to get an A+.
You reckon?
Yeah, I mean, dress watches are big.
They are, and
Mm.
I think there's a few things behind that. I think there's a return to sensible sizing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had where we were talking to a mutual friend who traditionally and professionally wears very large watches.
Mm-hmm.
They recently acquired family members like 36 mil IWC.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know how to wear it. I reckon they strap it on for a week, they'll get used to it real quick.
Very quick.
Mm.
So you don't want to get not an A+ from you?
Well, I mean, I don't think we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like Nautiluses will still be hot, subs will still be hot. Sports, I think, will still dominate the discourse.
Mm.
I think dress will become more relevant. And actually, I just wrote a piece for Mr. Porter about this. I don't know when it's been published, but looking at different, like the Piaget you talked about before. That's a dress watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sports watch as well, but functionally, I think it's a dress watch.
I mean, it's a vague distinction between the two.
Yeah, like it's a sports inspired design, but it's intended to be worn in a dressy sort of way, like 30 minutes water resistance. It's expensive. It's
what sport is it for? Okay, all right. Give
so
me a grade.
No nuance. He gets a B plus. If we talk about his like a bit more contextualized, A plus.
Okay. Next up, we have Asher Rapkin, also OT alum
Mm-hmm.
from Collective Horology. Asher, took a bit of a dive on the indies, said they're going to really grow, and again, a bit less interest in mainstream watches. People are going to get bored with waiting for stuff they can't get, and they're going to sort of look towards independent brands, bigs and small.
A plus.
Just because he's Asher, because he's a great guy.
No. I mean, but like we've said it before. We've been saying it all year. Really, like there's more. More people means a fraction of them are going to want to take it further than the data they just bought, and they're going to be fascinated by the history of this movement, and then they're going to eventually stumble down the rabbit hole and end up buying weird 1970s Urban Jurgensen.
Yeah, fair. I think they've got that Arm & Strong for sale too. If you want to get into collective horology, I don't know if it's sold out yet.
People that understand watches tell me it's a very, very important and very clever mechanism. Resonant.
Was that Asher who told you that?
No way. Cheryl Shear at Revolution wrote an article on it, and I kind of understood what it was about.
Cool. Morgan King, watch collector from the States, probably kicking around Hodinkee. He made some Rolex predictions. Boring at this point, but one he did have was that we would see a new Air King. Sort of said it was long overdue, and we would see a new Air King. And Morgan was correct.
Is an upgrade from like 2016 long overdue? When was the original Ugly Air King released?
I mean the original, long time ago.
No. The most sorry.
The original, the predecessor, the ugly predecessor.
2016.
No, probably 2008 or 2009.
No, the one with the weird. No, much later than that. The weird speedo dial. It was. That was Blood.
Yeah.
They had that
2016, I think.
Relationship with Bloodhound.
It kind of got an update, new case.
Slightly tweaked dial design. Discord will know. Discord, tell us. If not, join it. Morgan King. Well done, I guess.
Yeah,
that's an A.
He didn't specify. He just said new, so on the money. Letitia Hershey.
A bunch of other stuff that I assume you got wrong. So
yeah, Letitia Hershey from
Watch PR lady.
Watch PR.
I mean,
forget the firm.
Caviar
PR. Good say, Felix. Gave the PR take from the watch industry. She said there's going to be more inclusive messaging in the marketing we see around watches, and I just want to remind everyone I am not quoting people verbatim here. This is my interpretation, okay? I've summarised it. So if don't be upset with me. But more inclusive messaging in the marketing, and that's, the copy, the campaigns, the photography, the way, all of it, the way that watches are marketing is going to be more inclusive.
I think that's happened.
I feel that that's happened.
Yeah.
I feel this is an A+ grade. Like I feel that that's happened. I don't know. I can't pinpoint it, but I get that feeling. Watches feel a little bit more inclusive.
Yes, and some I think, gender's been a big issue, that sort of gender labeling thing. I know some brands have, like, ditched men's and women's as categories.
Yeah.
I can't name them off the top of my head, but I read it somewhere, so it must be true. Yeah, no, that's I'd say, an A, and it's only not an A plus because there's always more that can be done, which isn't
Mm.
Letitia's job, you know?
Yeah, and I'd say she's got the finger on the pulse
Mm.
of what's going on, which is quite cool.
Oh, speaking of, terrible, this is not watch related, but,
Yep.
Balenciaga, are you across that?
Oh yeah,
Wow, there's a fail of an epic proportion.
just fueling the Kanye West
I mean,
saga as well.
quite a few people, I assume, have lost their jobs over that, and probably fair enough.
You just never want someone taking your campaign and looking for blood cult symbolism in there. We knew it. We knew it.
Rough.
Yeah.
You know what else is rough?
What's that?
I don't know. I got nothing to talk about.
Oh,
That was a terrible segue to the next section. So that were the misses. That were the misses and the hits of predictions, which I think a lot of that was pretty good, really.
yeah, and I should say, join our Discord, or if you're in a Discord, pipe up. Let us know what we've missed. It's
It's been a big year.
it's been a big year, and let us know what you think of those takes. But yeah, so sleepers, Felix, watch brands, watches, models,
Well, look,
artists.
so this is something we've been talking, weirdly enough, for the last few episodes about Franck Muller. It was a joke at the start of the year where we're like, what would it take to rehabilitate Franck Muller? And that's sort of always along with
When you say rehabilitate, you're talking about the brand.
yes, I'm
Okay.
talking about bringing the brand back to its former position of cool.
Okay, that's just our legal department.
Yeah, very good point. It's dropped. The brand has sort of dropped off the radar of a lot of like enthusiasts and collectors from its highs of the late '90s and mid 2000s, and that, along with the much beloved Gerard Perregaux Chrono Seahawk 2, were often used by us as examples of you know, allegories of how watch tastes can change. And I guess now we can use it as an allegory for why fashion is a circle. And we're coming back to Frank.
Not a week has gone by. I reckon in the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've not brought up Franck Muller. Are we the problem? Are we the solution?
We are part of the problem. No, we're 100% part of the problem. So let's
Is it
stop.
me?
But this is the difference. And this is what Tony Trainer was saying. It's not happening organically anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't. I think it's a bit artificial. Hey,
Sort of being, hyped up by, key influencers
the
or
vanguard.
key retailers or key whoever, the people that are stockpiling, very nice examples of old Frank watches and slowly drip feeding them out to auction. It's being, and maybe that's always the case. But I think it's useful to sort of think about that and think about other examples of things that might be, rising in our public consciousness. And a lot of it is like stuff that, people in the previous segment were talking about, like, dress watches and independent watches. But I'm going to nail it down a little bit more.
Go for it.
First up, Andy, clocks.
Okay.
Clocks and pocket watches.
Okay.
I'm not saying that we're all going to, throw away our phones and go back to grandfather clocks in public places.
You're thinking more like an Atmos clock?
Yeah. I'm thinking cool clocks. They've always been a segment of kind of cool clocks, but I think we're getting to a point now where we're okay spending silly money on things, and I think we're at a right time for a broader appreciation for what can be cool. Like again, we had we caught up with the listener in recently, and we talked about I think it's the blaster clock. I can't remember what it's called. That sort of one that rocks. It's like it sits on a desk and is weighted, and it just looks cool. It's made with lapé. MB&F, of course, have been doing clocks for a long time. Reverso, not Reverso, Atmos. I think we're going to start seeing a renewed appreciation for like serious clockmaking, also because people want to spend money and have cool things on their desks.
100%.
Again, on the other side of that are pocket watches, but the story with pocket watches is slightly different. I think that's from more of obviously a vintage point of view. I think there's a increasing understanding that you get some phenomenal value with pocket watches that is, if it was in a wristwatch, would cost, 10x a time. Like you can get, as you know,
Complications.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can get like a Patek repeater or something for, reasonable money. And if you're interested in the horology side of it rather than, the wrist flex side of it, that's a great deal.
John Reardon, he is about to have a good year.
Yeah, I mean, he's been saying it for a while. And again, I guess he sort of invested in it. But a really good example of both of these things is Derek Pratt, who you might or might not be aware of. He was a British watchmaker, sort of a contemporary with George Daniels, very good friends with George Daniels. And he seems like he should have a Netflix movie made about him. He did everything weird and mechanical. Like he flew planes, rode bikes, and presumably made them all himself or repaired them all himself. Phillips auctioned off a pocket watch that he made with Urban Jurgensen last year for 176K, which I think is showing like he's probably one step removed from Daniels, who is probably the best, the highest priced pocket watches we'll ever see. Or maybe Patek and Daniels, but one tier down, and it's literally a lot less. Like, a fraction of the price, half or a third of the price. So I think the market is expanding. Like we're starting to realize what's there, and we're going to be seeing more of it and more. And Derek Pratt also made clocks, by the way. He's better known as a clockmaker. So not
Clocks.
saying it's going to happen to everyone, but I think it will be more important. Related to this, still continuing my train and following up from what Asher was sort of saying about independence, I think we're going to see a rise in interest in independent watchmakers that are ripe for, air quotes, rediscovery. I think the big guys are too expensive. We can't afford John. We can't afford, Kari. We can't get them. We can't get to four. Or they've got the new guys they're either unproven or they have too long wait lists. But I think there is a lot of really, really strong watchmaking that has been made in the last 20 years that will start to sort of bubble up, like guys like Vincent Calabrese, the McGonagals, Peter Speak-Marin, Anton Presuzio. This stuff I find is very interesting because a lot of it, looks very much of its time. Like Vincent Calabrese made some incredibly complex and fascinating mechanical stuff, but it looks like it was made in 2005, if you know what I mean. And that might be a bit of a challenge to swallow for some people. The other thing about it is that a lot of these guys are still working. So like the McGonagals is a great example. Like they have a long relationship with MB&F. So
and a few other places too.
Yeah. So I don't know what the how that will come out. Like maybe you're going to see that sort of, Louis Arad is doing a really good thing with like designers. Like they've done a lot of sort of collaborations with makers or designers. Maybe we're going to see, I don't know, someone like Peter Speak-Marin teaming up with Fears or another English brand or something like that. Or you're going to see more of that. Bigger brands tapping these high profile independents, and alongside that you're going to see sort of a spike in the interest in their vintage catalogs. The next one, Andy, this is based on you.
Sure, can't wait to hear it.
You've decided the Girard-Perregaux Laureato is cool.
I mean, the 38mm copper dial that just came out, I think it's pretty cool.
And this is something, it's a conversation we've had. We talk, Vacheron Constantin overseas is very much cool at the moment. When it was released, SIHH
was not
2016. People hated it. People were crapping all over it. It was
cool to hate it.
Yeah, exactly. And in the same, so the Laureato was probably released 2018, 2019, something like that.
Re-released,
People, so the most recent version of it, people hated it. People thought it was the worst. And I think now we're going to come around to it just being a fine, nice, solid watch that is probably underappreciated. If, and this is a big if for me, they can resist making a million different iterations, because I think it's too confusing at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It's a confusing lineup. It's already a broad skew.
Ultimate. They've got too many different diffusions of it when they're not quite like they think they're AP, but they're not quite AP.
Yeah, I think if they can get the movement really, really solid
and
something that's good value for money, because it is pushing up in price.
Yeah,
I think it can be.
But they just have to dial it back a bit, I reckon, to keep the appetite there.
Keep them hungry.
And this is one we were talking about again just before, Chopard.
Chopard, yeah. Just generally as a brand, Milli Milia, LUC range, obviously the Alpine Eagle, some cool stuff, very fine watchmaking.
Underappreciated watchmaking. They do some very, very cool stuff, and they've got their own sort of qualifications that they kind of rival Patek in a lot of ways in terms of what they are capable of, certainly in chiming watches and finishing. But I don't know.
It could be slept on. I feel like they're getting a bit more mainstream attention. Jennifer Aniston, big Chopard friend. I don't know if she's an ambassador, but she's a big friend.
Apparently not. Maybe placed, but well, maybe they had her afterwards. Anyway, this rambling rabbit hole has led me to, I think what I'm saying with all these things is that the real sleeper is an appetite for stuff we haven't seen before as much. Like, I think anything that's novel in a genuine sense and that can be backed up with that sort of credibility or security that I think people want in an expensive item, and especially an expensive item in a wobbly economy, will do well. And I think the best example of that over the last 5 to 10 years is Cartier. Obviously, it's a huge scale, but if you look at Cartier, 10 or 15 years before, they were cool, but they were not anywhere near as cool as they are today.
Especially their watches. It was always, great.
Yeah.
But the last 4 years have just exceptional.
And it's because it's like all those they've got dress watches. They've got watches that don't look like anything else. They've got an unimpeachable legacy. Like, that's sort of, for me, the example of where other brands that do similar things will be coming from. That's what we're saying with Franck Muller. Like, there's an interest there because they're slightly odd looking. There's credibility. There's a bit of a history there. There's some, and they're available, and they don't look like a Rolex or a Nautilus. Silberstein, another great one that's sort of got a lot of play. Icopod, we're seeing.
Even Breguet. Even Breguet is an interesting brand.
I mean, if Swatch Group decided to get serious about Breguet, I think they'd be on fire. Oh no, I don't. I'm not trying to be derogatory there, but they're not. If anyone's sleeping on Breguet, it's
Swatch Group
management.
That's a hot take.
No,
but it's a fair take. But it's hot.
Like, they're not. If they invested in the marketing and promotion and what they've got there, it'd be
flying.
Yeah, they'd go off tap. Just ended up being a bit more spicy than I anticipated, Andy.
That was, you finished on a high. Well, Felix, that's all we have today. As always, thank you, Artem, for supporting OT the podcast. Support us by supporting our sponsors. If you want to email us with a sponsorship proposal or some sort of prediction or watch brands that we're sleeping on.
If you're the Hayek family and you want to sue us.
And you want Felix's personal address and schedule, otthepodcast@gmail.com or ot.podcast on Instagram. 5-star reviews, Felix. Love to see them.
Even B pluses. I'll take a B plus, to be honest.
We got a 5-star review the other day that said, I love it, but I want, it was 5 stars, but they said, I want more watch talk. I'm sick of hearing interviews with people. I want to hear watch talk. Well, here you go. Here's a whole episode of watch talk.
Yep. And Goncharov. Go see
Goncharov. All right. If you like OT, subscribe to your friends, your family, people on the street. Let them know.
Yeah.
See you next time.